football club Zenit, Russian, fʊdˈbolʃnɨj Club Zenit. Zenith, also known as Zenit Saint Petersburg, is a Russian football club from the city of St. Petersburg, founded in 1925, or in 1914, according to some Russian sources. The club plays in the Russian Premier League. Zenit were the 2007, 2010, 2011-12 and 2014-15 champions of the Russian Premier League and the winners of both the 2007-08 UEFA Cup and the 2008 UEFA Super Cup. History. Before Zenit, Zenit's history is tightly connected with the political history of St. Petersburg, Russia, also called Petrograd and Leningrad at times in its history. In 1897, the first football match in Russia was held in St. Petersburg on Vasilyevsky Island, an unofficial game between the local English team, Ostrov, and the local Russian team, Petrograd, which the English team won 6-0. The players of those local teams were amateurs and loosely associated with each other. At the same time, several formal football clubs were founded in St. Petersburg, mainly around large industrial companies. Players' membership was unofficial and very loose, however, sometimes allowing the same players to play for several different teams during the same season. Formation of Zenit. The original Zenit team stemmed from several football teams, which changed names and owners many times during the Soviet era after the Revolution of 1917. As powerful political forces manipulated the careers of individual players as well as the fate of the whole team, the club was renamed several times and its owners and leaders were under political pressure for many decades. The origins of Zenit date back to the beginning of the 20th century to several predecessor teams in St. Petersburg that were playing locally. The oldest documented predecessor of Zenit was the team, Murzinka, founded in 1914, which played in the Obukovsky Stadium from 1914 until 1924, when the team came to be known as Bolshevik, the new name for Obukovsky industry and its stadium. The team and stadium survived the drama of World War I, the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917, and the Russian Civil War of 1918 to 1922. In 1925, another predecessor team of Zenit was formed, of workers from the Leningradsky Metallurgical Zavod, Leningrad metal plant. They were called the Stalinets in the 1930s. Stalinets translates literally to English as Stalinists. However, in Russian, the name is a play on words as stal means steel in that language. Historians documented that both predecessor teams of Zenit were playing independently until their official merger at the end of 1939. The Stalinets were not the same team named Zenit that took part in the 1938 USSR Championship. The current name of FC Zenit was registered in 1936. As Bolshevik became part of the Zenit Sports Society and was renamed 3 years before the Stalinets merged with it. In 1939, during the rule of Joseph Stalin, Leningradsky Metallurgical Zavod became part of the military industry and its sports teams, players, and managers were transferred to the Zenit Sports Society. FC Zenit was ordered to take in members of the Stalinets metallurgical workers team after the end of the 1939 season. Zenit in the Soviet League. Zenit won their first honors in 1944. Claiming the wartime USSR Cup after defeating CSKA Moscow in the well-attended final. The club was always adored in Leningrad, but was not able to make much of a significant impact in the Soviet League. In 1967, Zenit finished last but were saved from relegation because the Soviet leadership decided it would not be prudent to relegate a Leningrad team during the 50th anniversary of the October Revolution, which occurred in the city. Composer Dmitry Shostakovich and film star Kirill Lavrov were well known as ardent supporters of Zenit, a passion that is reflected in their attendance of many games. Zenit won the bronze medal in 1980, also reaching the Soviet Cup final and winning the Soviet League title in 1984. In 1985, Zenit beat the Soviet Cup holder in the Soviet Super Cup, also called the Season Cup. Zenit in the Russian League. The Lomo optical plant took up the ownership of the team after the war. In 1990, FC Zenit were re-registered as an independent city-owned professional club, after being relegated in the first year of the Russian League. 1992. Zenit returned to the top flight in 1996 and has been decent since. They claimed the 1999 Russian Cup, finished third in the league in 2001, made the cup final in 2002, became the runners-up in the Premier League and won the Russian Premier League Cup in 2003. Gazprom Era. In December 2005, Gazprom took a controlling stake in the club. The deal was announced by Valentina Matviyenko, the St. Petersburg governor. Gazprom bought the majority of the club and invested over $100 million, buying new players and building the new stadium. Under advocate equals. Although Zenit reached the quarter-finals of the UEFA Cup in 2006, a mediocre start to the league season led to the summer replacement of coach Vlastimil Petrozella. In July 2006, Dick Advocaat took over as Zenit's manager. Advocaat worked together with his assistant manager, former Netherlands national youth team coach ʻk噚up. Zenit won the 2007 Russian Premier League, their best league achievement since winning the USSR Championship in 1984, allowing them to compete in the group stage of the 2008-09 UEFA Champions League. In 2008, Zenit won the Russian Super Cup and reached the quarter-final of the UEFA Cup for the second time in their history. In the first leg of the quarter-final away game against German side Bayer Leverkusen, the team achieved a 4-1 victory. They qualified for the semi-finals of the competition for the first time in their history, despite a 1-0 home loss to Leverkusen in the second leg, and were drawn to play further German opposition in the semi-final. Bayern Munich, considered the top team remaining. A battling performance in the first leg of the semi-final earned Zenit a 1-1 draw away against Bayern Munich. In the second leg at home, Zenit won 4-0, defeating Bayern 5-1 on aggregate and going through to the UEFA Cup final for the first time in club history, where they met Scottish side Rangers at the City of Manchester Stadium in Manchester on 14 May. Zenit won 2-0, with goals from Igor Denisov in the 72nd minute and Konstantin Zyryanov in stoppage time, to lift the club's first ever UEFA Cup. Andrei Arshavin was named man of the match on 29 August 2008. At the Stade Louis II in Monaco, Zenit then defeated Manchester United 2-1 in the 2008 UEFA Super Cup, becoming the first Russian side to win the trophy. Pavel Pogrebnyak scored the first goal and Danny scored the second, the latter being named man of the match in his debut for Zenit. In the 2008-09 Champions League group stage, Zenit was grouped with Real Madrid, Juventus and Bate Borisov in Group H, which by some was marked as the group of death. Zenit ultimately finished in third place in the group, behind Juventus and Real Madrid, and was thus unable to progress to the knockout phase of the competition. This position, however, was good enough to earn the club a place in the 2008-09 UEFA Cup last 32. where the team faced VfB Stuttgart for a place in the last 16 of the competition. After defeating Stuttgart on away goals, Zenit went on to lose 2-1 over 2 legs against Italian club Udinese. == Luciano Spalletti signed a contract with Zenit in December 2009, with Italian coaches Daniele Baldini, Marco Domenicini and Alberto Bartali also joining the Russian club. The board of Zenit mandated him to return the Russian Premier League title to Zenit, win the Russian Cup and progress from the group stage of the Champions League in his first year. Zenit won the Russian Cup on 16 May 2010 after beating Sabir Novosibirsk in the final, previously beating Volga Tver in the quarter-finals and Umkar Perm in the semi-finals. After 16 games in the 2010 Premier League, with 12 wins and 4 draws, Zenit claimed 40 points, setting a new Russian Premier League record for most points won at that stage of the campaign. In the summer transfer window of 2010, Spalletti made his first signings, securing forward Alexander Bukharov and midfielder Sergei Semic from Rubin Kazan, defenders Alexander Lukovic from Udinese and Bruno Alves from Porto. On 25 August 2010, Zenit lost its first game under Spalletti to French side Auxerre and failed to advance to the Champions League group stage, instead participating in the Europa League. On 3 October, Zenit beat Spartak Nalchik to set another Russian Premier League record for most consecutive games, going undefeated, with 21 games since the start of the league season. On 27 October, however, Zenit suffered its first defeat of the season at the hands of rival club Spartak Moscow, just 7 games short of finishing the championship undefeated. On 14 November, Zenit defeated Rostov in 2 games prior to the end of the season, won the championship title, the first in Spalletti's managerial career. Zenit progressed through the knockout stage of the 2010-11 Europa League in first place, then beating Swiss side Young Boys in the round of 16. On 6 March 2011, Zenit won against CSKA Moscow in the Russian Super Cup, the third Russian trophy won under Spalletti. On 17 March, however, Zenit were knocked out of the Europa League, losing to Dutch team Twente 2-3 on aggregate in the quarter-finals. In the 2011-12 Champions League, Zenit began the group stage drawn into Group G alongside Porto, Shakhtar Donetsk and Apoel. On 6 December 2011, the team finished the group stage in second place and for the first time in club's history, qualified for the spring knockout phase of Champions League. In the round of 16, Zenit were drawn with Portuguese side Benfica, winning the first leg 3-2 at home through 2 goals from Roman Shirokov and 1 from Sergei Semic. In the second leg in Lisbon, however, Zenit lost 2-0 and were thus eliminated from the competition. In April 2012, Zenit won their second straight Russian championship after beating Dynamo Moscow. Under Villas-Boas. After a series of disappointing results in both the Champions League and the Premier League, Spalletti was fired on the 11th of March 2014. A week later, the club announced they had negotiated a 2-year deal with Andre Villas-Boas, who himself had been released a few months prior after a disappointing stint as manager of English side Tottenham Hotspur. In the 2014-15 Europa League, Zenit were eliminated in the quarter-finals by eventual champions Sevilla. In May 2015, Zenit won the Russian Championship, the first championship title under Villas-Boas and the team's 5th ever. On the eve of its 90th anniversary celebration, Zenit then defeated Lokomotiv Moscow in the 2015 Russian Super Cup 1-1, 4-2 on penalties. Later in the 2015 calendar year, Villas-Boas said that he would be leaving the club after the 2015-16 season. In the 2015-16 Champions League, Zenit began the competition in the group stage. They were drawn in Group H alongside Valencia, Lyon and Gent. They ended the group stage with their best group stage finish ever, winning 5 out of 6 matches and emerging as group winners. They were, however, eliminated from the competition in the round of 16 by Portuguese side Benfica. On 24 May 2016, Villas-Boas left the club at the end of the season, with Michel Lucescu appointed the new manager of Zenit. Under Lucescu. On July 2016, Zenit won the Russian Super Cup after they won 0-1 against CSKA Moscow. During the 2016-17 Europa League, Zenit began the group stage drawn into Group D alongside Maccabi Tel Aviv, AZ Alkmaar and Dundalk. On 8 December 2016, the team finished the group stage in first place and qualified for the spring knockout phase of Europa League. In the round of 32, Zenit faced R.S.C. Anderlecht and was eliminated 3-3 on aggregate due to the away goals rule. In the league, Zenit's performances in the spring were disappointing, and as such the club finished third and missed out on the Champions League for the second year in a row. Zenit was also eliminated in the round of 16 by FC Angers Makakala 0-4 on aggregate after an abysmal performance. The first and last season of Michel Lucescu was a complete disappointment despite the expectations. Under Mancini. On 1 June 2017, Zenit appointed Roberto Mancini as the new manager of the team. Stadiums. Zenit's home ground is now the 21,500 capacity Petrovsky Stadium in St. Petersburg. In 2007, the club's former home base at the Kirov Stadium was demolished, to be replaced with a new stadium built for Zenit, Krestovsky Stadium. The new football stadium in St. Petersburg is currently under construction. Once completed, it will host Zenit's home matches. The stadium will have a capacity of 68,184. Achievements. Domestic competitions. Soviet Top League, Russian Premier League. Champions. 5. 1984, 2007, 2010, 2011-12, 2014-15. Soviet Cup, Russian Cup. Champions. 4. 1944, 1998-99, 2009-10, 2015-16. Soviet Super Cup, Russian Super Cup. Champions. 5. 1984, 2008, 2011, 2015, 2016. All-Union Committee of Physical Culture and Sports Tournament, USSR Federation Cup, Russian Premier League Cup. Champions. 2003. International competitions. UEFA Champions League. Round of 16. 2011-12. 2013-14. 2015-16. UEFA Cup. Champions. 2007-08. UEFA Super Cup. Champions. 2008. UEFA Intertoto Cup. Runner-up. 2000. League and Cup history. Soviet Union. Russia. League results. Players. Current squad. Note. Flags indicate national team as defined under FIFA eligibility rules. Players may hold more than one non-FIFA nationality. Out on loan. Note. Flags indicate national team as defined under FIFA eligibility rules. Players may hold more than one non-FIFA nationality. Reserve squad. Zenit's reserve squad played professionally as Zenit-2, Russian Second League in 1993. Russian Second Division from 1998 to 2000, and Zenit-D, Russian Third League from 1994 to 1997. Another team that was founded as Lokomotiv Zenit-2 played as Zenit-2 in the Russian Second Division from 2001 to 2008. By 2008, there was no relation between that team and FC Zenit. Another farm club called FC Smena Zenit debuted in the Russian Second Division in 2009, taking the spot of the former FC Zenit 2. FC Smena Zenit was dissolved after the 2009 season because it did not fulfill Zenit's initial expectations. Zenit 2 re-entered professional football in the 2013-14 season in the Russian Professional Football League. Team captains, club officials, board of directors. Source: FC Zenit. Ru. Management. Source: http FC Zenit. Ru. Zenit. Coaches, kit makers, presidents, head coaches. In Europe, as of the 28th of September 2017. By competition, UEFA ranking. As of the 22nd of June 2017. Notable players had international caps for their respective countries. Players whose name is listed in bold represented their countries while playing for Zenit. Partnership. Other football clubs: Schalke 04, Shakhtar Donetsk, Red Star Belgrade, PAOK. Corporations: Megaphone, Россия Airlines, Nissan, OB Store, Rostelecom, Corinthia St. Petersburg, St. Peter Line, Google. Notes. Official website. In Russian. In English. Official Danish website. http://dk. FC Zenit. Ru.